business owners, have you ever wanted to know what it takes to sell a company for 7 or 8 figures? I'm here with Jess Phillips, a good friend of mine. He's got a pretty cool car. I just took a look at it, but he's awesome. He's got a lot of experience, and today we're going to go ahead and interview him on exactly how that process kind of works, his experience, and just some learning lessons along the way. So, Jess, thanks for coming on. And what are some things that you've accomplished when it comes to building or selling a company?
Oh man, we've done a lot of different companies. A few of them have taken off, and some of them have taken off and done huge things, and then, COVID comes along and changes your whole plans, changes your whole world, and doesn't end the way you want. And then we've had some that we've done an exit on. We've had another one that we did a Series A.
Okay.
Different way of selling or raising money. So been through that process a few different times, and a few different types of companies. One was more tech, one was more construction. So a few different things.
So a question I have when it comes to selling a business is, how do you know what to do next? So let's say you have a good business, right?
Okay.
What do you do next? Like, do you look for a broker, someone approach you? What kind of knowledge do you need?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think I can just speak from the eye, right? Like, for me, I think we always had in mind, like, hey, it'd be great if we can, cash out at a certain number. And one day I realized, like, I think we're close. Like, we just kind of forgot about it, just head down working. And then, one day we look at the financials and realize, okay, I think with, 4, 5, 6 multiplier, we could get to that number we were talking about long ago, a few years ago when we started this thing. I just reached out to somebody that was very well networked, and he had somebody he recommended as a broker, and then we just spoke with him and kind of went through his process. It's similar to like selling a home, like having a realtor, similar process, obviously, a lot different, a lot more emotionally attached and all that, but as far as the relationship between you and a broker, it's very similar to like hiring a realtor to sell your home for you.
Well, it's funny you use the word emotionally attached, because I've heard from our good friend Mike Burnett, where he said, he sold a couple companies, and he says, when, other people are looking to buy your company, they're looking through your financials and they're looking through your systems and everything you've built. He says it does feel somewhat personal. As far as like when they say, well, your business isn't worth as much as maybe you think, or maybe they challenge you in that aspect. What kind of emotions did you feel in the process of selling your business?
Well, that's a great point. Like, if you're thinking about selling a business, I definitely recommend a broker for the same reasons you want to have a realtor. Like, you do not want to be taking people through your own house, listening to them tell you about how your closet's too small, or the thing you renovated yourself is actually they're going to tear out. And I think it's the same with a business. I think especially business, because it's your heart and soul. I think even more so than even a home. For a lot of us entrepreneurs. So that's where it's good to have a broker that just has the experience, isn't emotionally attached, can leave out the stuff that doesn't matter, and can really talk about the stuff that does. He knows what a buyer's looking for, and so I think that's where it's really great to just you go focus on building the business and let them deal with it. Because the reality is when you are ready for that process, it's really rare, besides the stories that you hear about on social media, we glorify like, oh, they put up for sale and it sold in one day for $1 million. Like, the reality is, like, we had a good business, it was doing well, it sold for what we were hoping for, and it still took 9 months to 12 months before
anything happened.
It was about 9 months before we made a decision with somebody that had a legitimate offer. We actually had 2, ironically. Once we were finally there, we had 2 at the same time, of course, right? And they were both legit offers, really similar, and we picked one, and a few months later, everything was done, and we got funded, and it was a fun day. So that was one. And then, you have a different experience with like a Series A, because you're still going to stay in the company. You're going to use that round of funding to like fuel the future growth. So it's fun in a different way, where it's like, cool, we're going to be able to throw some rocket fuel in this. Someone else that believes in, that's really good at betting companies is saying, you guys have what it takes, and I want to put money behind you guys. So it's just validating in a different way and exciting.
So I have to ask, because, as every entrepreneur knows, it's, you're putting your heart and soul into this. You're working all day, all night, and to get this thing jump started. Did you have any hesitation or any feelings of sadness when you sold? Did you have any like, hey, this is my baby? Or did you find yourself feeling any type of emotional attachment, or did you really feel like, all right, great, we sold it, now off to the next thing?
Yeah, no, that's a really good. I think I'd answer that. There's two different experiences. Like I had one that was really my baby, like my first big business, my first business that really took off. I mean, we got to 260 employees and all the awards and all the things and recognition and big evaluation. Like, whoa, we're worth, 80 million at least, 100 million at least. And my mindset was just like, I'm going to the moon. I'm going to stay in. And my partner and it'd be like, dude, we're taking some chips off the table at least. My mindset has completely shifted to where, especially if you're trying to get that first kind of chunk of money, like the peace of mind that brings, the leverage you're able to get when you're able to take some chips off the table, and also you get less emotionally attached to the business when you're not just doing it just to make sure you make money to provide and have safety long term for your family. As soon as you can do that, I feel like the whole world changed for me, was to be able to get that first big chunk of money to like invest it, diversify, be smart, open new businesses are so much easier. Like, we have one now that's thriving, and it's been so much more fun because we're not like, okay, we can't afford to turn on $1,000 marketing campaign because we need to make our paycheck. Like we're not worried about payroll. We're not worried about our paycheck next week. We can make better long-term decisions. So that's what really my mindset shifted. And so that one, I wish I would have taken chips off the table. The world, that was a great example of where the whole world changed when COVID happened. And next thing you know, that didn't end anywhere near like I thought. It was a pretty tragic story. And then you have a construction company that was relatively small. We bought it when it was really small, and we just built it up slowly. We added a new vertical eventually, and it just kind of had a nice little pop for a couple of years. And we're like, hey, it's time to put up for sale. I was not involved with that one at that point, day-to-day grinding. So it was a lot easier to be detached.
Got it, because you weren't inside.
Yeah, so it was like I was there in the beginning when we needed to get it going and get it thriving. But then it was kind of cruising. My business partner was the CEO and running it day to day. So when we sold that one, it was pretty easy for me to like just celebrate it and watch my business partner celebrate it, and it was really fun. So
So what about any lessons that you learned for building up the business? So as you were building up the business, was there any lessons that stand out to you as far as like, oh, well, when I first started, I didn't know this, and then over time, or were there mentors? I know you've mentioned a couple guys in your life that have been mentors and kind of educated you on certain aspects.
Yeah, I think I feel like that's the thing that I would have no problem bragging about, is somehow I've always been surrounded by some really good people. I've been really fortunate that way. And even, kind of a rare situation where your client actually becomes a great mentor. So I had a billionaire client. We got, lucky in some ways, got to skip some steps as a business where we acquired this client that really helped us really grow fast because he believed in what we were doing. And being in his shoes, he's used to mentoring people and being ahead of the game when he could see young business owners that are still learning, and he was totally willing to help kind of teach us along the way as we, took care of the needs that he had. So I think learned a lot from people like him, specifically just his mindset around money and how it's just a tool. And he was, as much money as he had, it's easier, you'd think, because he's a billionaire, but he just looked at money just so much differently. Like when there was a time that we needed to raise money, it was just so matter of fact. And so a very stoic mindset that he, had built over time, and that was something I really benefited from.
So he wasn't really emotionally attached to the money. He was more so, he just viewed it as, this is just another tool to do the next thing we're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's easy for us to, like, we'll sit back and go, well, it's easy, he's a billionaire. Like, if he loses $100,000, it's like a sandwich to him. But at the same time, he was very in the details and knew what was going on. And really big about, I think where we did well with him, a story I'd tell that I learned from him was how important authenticity and integrity was. I mean, somebody like him, everybody knows who he is and his money. And so I think he really valued an authentic relationship with most, because everybody coming at him isn't that way. And I was so young. I was like 28, I think, when I met him, that I was like, what am I have to? I don't have anything to pose or pretend I have to. Like, I'm just, like, all I have is to be authentic and be like, hey, I'd love to learn from you. And so, he gave me a preach about the integrity, and, he just didn't want to be taken advantage of. And I think he was coming from a place of like, because I had a lot of money, people will rationalize stealing from me.
Yep.
And I remember he told us that in the first meeting. And fast forward a year and a half later, we've done a few projects with him. We did one big project, Real Salt Lake Stadium.
Okay.
And we were starting on our way to do a couple others. And we had gotten, basically, long story short, a big refund from the utility company, from the power company, of $150,000 that we thought we would get back on behalf of our client.
Got it.
At that point, he had written it off and not been thinking about it. The check was made out to our company. We could have cashed it.
Yep.
He would have never known.
Yep. He wouldn't care neither, probably.
And
I mean, assuming
it would have not met. It wouldn't have changed his lifestyle, right? It wouldn't have changed. But I went to his office to meet with him, talk about some of their projects, and at the end I just handed him the check. Like, to me, it wasn't a big deal. This is his money. It's not like I'm sitting here going, oh, look at me, I have integrity. Like, to me, it's his money. We return it to him.
Yep.
But to him, when I gave him that check, like, I thought it was just a nothing moment.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy that has at the time, $1.6 billion, and it's worth, 4 or 5 now, but like $150,000, do the math, it's not much.
Yeah.
But that was the greatest thing
like,
ever.
It's like his best
he
day
stopped
of life.
everything. He's giving me a hug. He's not a hugger.
Yep.
I have a picture of him hugging me with the check in his hand, and then he tells me he's going to give me an integrity fee of $30,000 back.
Nice.
So I was like, dang, okay. So that's not always how it works, right? Like, you get an integrity fee, but to him that meant a lot. And so ultimately what I took from that is everybody gets to preach when we were 5, 6 years old, like, don't lie and integrity. But there was a lot of times along the way of building a company like that I would see competitors that I knew were lying, that were cutting corners with customers, and they were winning. Like, they were becoming legit competitors. And there was times where I was questioning, like, wait a minute, we've been doing this for 7 years. These guys started 2 years ago, and they're already up to our own volume. Can I actually win doing it right? Because I know I was told, by mom and dad, like, no, do it right and you'll win. But I'm like, maybe that's not how the real world works. So what it did was it validated that lesson. Like, I saw someone that, like, out of every lesson he focused on, it was like integrity, doing that, and clearly you can win doing that. Now, everybody's going to have their viewpoint of, like, their story of if they're taking advantage of stuff, but overall he really believed in that. And I got to see an example of, like, you can win and still, like, do the right thing.
That's a funny story you share, because it reminds you of the baseball playing days where I was a talented outfielder, and then when it was during the steroid era, and everyone was taking steroids while I was playing, and you have those moments where I said, no, I don't, I'm not going to do it. I mean, because it would be basically cheating, right? I mean, but not everyone feels that way, and I never did it. And there was times though where I would look in the mirror and be like, man, sometimes I wish I didn't have this feeling, because it sure looks a whole lot easier for these other guys as they're taking the steroids and getting these accolades and stuff. But it's very short-lived, right? I mean, because it doesn't last forever. I mean, you got a year or two under your belt, but you can't take it forever without getting popped. And pretty much that's what, I guess, Deloitte, is that who it was teaching you, which was think long-term, right? So with that being said, long-term mentality, as you built up your company, how long did it take you to build up your company, and what was your thought process behind it?
Well, I guess it just depends on, like, which company. There's a lot of different stories, but probably, the one that was the biggest, it took the first 2 years were really slow. Like, still working a job while starting it. I, like, had a young family, and so I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through that version. And I appreciate that version the most, right? Where it's like, I'm going to work a job while starting this business, working in the middle of the night, or, I have stories of, like, I worked at Verizon, and so I would sneak across to Office Depot, literally sit at one of their desks, and, like, send out emails to customers, and there's all kinds of other stories. But basically I had to do both for almost 2 years. And then before I could quit, and my income was enough that I could, like, still take a leap of faith. But at least it wasn't the Grand Canyon and, like, just being crazy, because, we had just gotten done with the recession, and I had a small kiosk in the mall that did really well for a couple months, and then the recession hit and it just dropped. So I had that first, like, scare of, like, oh my gosh, like, this whole entrepreneur thing is scary. I had a lot of money from my dad, who, doesn't have the money. It's not like I grew up around money. So, I think, the first couple of years were really slow, and then we started to get a little momentum, and our industry also started to gain momentum. But, I think as we grew, one thing we did really well was we stayed focused on the culture of the company.
Yep.
And I would say from the beginning to until we got to 150 or 200 employees,
Yep.
we did a really good job of the culture was so good where it almost kept, even if we somehow hired a bad apple,
Yep.
they would almost quit on their own.
Just because
knew they didn't belong.
Yeah, because it was just not they could just tell there's no destroying this, basically.
Yeah, we had a great vision, we had a great mission, and to be honest, a lot of that was just kind of hey, I know what I would want in a company. I think part of what did well, why we did well, is it's not like I went and did all this formal training on how to create a great culture.
Yep.
I really think a lot of it was just I know what it feels like to be in a company that doesn't appreciate you, and
Yep.
I know what it feels like to be one that does. How would I want to be treated? I think what benefited me was I wasn't that far removed
Yep.
from being an employee.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered it well. In fact, I was still an employee while we were starting this company. There was a 2-year overlap.
Got it.
So it's I'd go to my job every day and be
Yep.
reminded of why I want to leave the job and why they're not taking care of me. And then sometimes I'd learn oh, this is one of the great things this manager did.
Yeah.
And so I was almost implementing in real time of how would I want to build a company and culture that I would want to be in.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good reminder because I do look at some entrepreneurs, including myself, where I'm 10 or 15 years removed
Yeah.
from having a job, and sometimes you can get out of touch of what it's really like for somebody to you
Go
want them
through
to
it.
think
Yeah.
like you do, but they don't have equity in your company or whatever. Maybe that's something you offer or whatever it is, but I think it's just really good to kind of get that reminder of what it's like to be in the employee's shoes, and just I think that's something that served us well was I was still in that mindset of how would I want to be treated.
How has your relationship with money changed over the years, especially before you sold the business and then after?
Yeah, great question. So I think my experience was building a bigger company that took off. We didn't sell it or anything, but we were making some really good money along the way at one point. Had the huge salary and some good distributions and built the dream house and the cars. And I kind of went through that experience of hey, I was told, or I thought, if I have this much money and these things, on paper I should be happy. We're healthy, kids are healthy, marriage should be great. And I don't think anything was terrible, but it wasn't what I was expecting. It was just all manageable or doing okay. And also started becoming more addicted to I needed that next exciting win or whatever.
The huge dopamine hit.
And the validation that I was my company. I had become my company, and it was always that's where my self-worth was. A lot of it was built. So I think the best thing that ever happened to me was COVID and things that we couldn't control that just really changed our business and forced us to basically exit and end it in a way we didn't want to. And, for me, I went through a process of almost bankrupt in every way, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and having to rebuild from the ground up. And I think that was the best thing that happened to me because had to just rewire how my brain worked with money. Because no matter how much you try, when you have money coming in like that, and you just become desensitized a little bit. So it gave me a new way to look at it, rebuild the relationship in a way that I intentionally choose how it's going to work. And what I loved about that process is I genuinely didn't think I was going to ever make money again after that. I was well, that was my shot. Most people never get that experience anyway, so I was lucky to even have it. I'll go back and get a job or whatever. Got to another company and it took off. We did we had $500 million in sales over the next few years, and that took off, and then interest rates skyrocketed, so that slowed down, and then we had another company that we did exit from and did well, and at that point I felt the way I tracked opportunities, the way I see them, how much more financially free I felt. I remember being asked, where have you felt the richest? The most stable. And it's I had way less income coming, but it was just my mindset was so much different with money that I was in such a healthier place. Okay, I've got enough, X amount, and I wouldn't have anxiety about it or whatever. And then it was just interesting how as I rewired my relationship with money and got healthier that way, it just started to
more opportunities came.
It started to come much easier. And
why do you think that is? Why? So that's usually, you hear stuff like that, you know, whether it's when you're dating, right? If you're not looking, you'll find that person. You know, money, it comes to better relationship with money and you're not as stressed about it, magically starts appearing. Why do you think, by you changing kind of how you looked at it, more opportunities came? What's your theory on why that happened?
Well, I think at least one part of it I can share is I used to think it's like that law of attraction thing where you say like you start attracting it. And my opinions changed a little bit, and it feels like you're attracting it, but I think what changes is you get in a healthier place and you don't need it.
Got it.
You don't need it. Like, it's not constantly something you have to have and have on your mind and figuring out, like, I need it to validate me, or I need it to, if I get this much more, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be able to attract the relationship I want, or then I'll be able to have whatever it is. And once I got out of that mindset of I needed it in that way, as soon as I did that, is like, I felt like instead of just attracting the opportunities, I started to just see them. It's like your mind and heart.
That's an interesting point.
It's like your body can't even handle those opportunities, so it's not even going to see them. It's like, I can't even deal with that opportunity, so I'm not even going to really pay attention to it. So I feel like my vision of seeing opportunities, and now I just have to get good at like saying no to things. Because like, I could turn that into something or that or whatever, but.
That's a very interesting way. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say it like that, actually, where usually they say, you know, things, you know, they get attracted to you or whatnot, but the way you put it about feeling almost blind, like if you're not with the right relationship as far as where you're at mentally with it, you don't even see all the opportunities, and that's true, because I think I've experienced that before.
Well, the proof I would say about that is like, an example is we've all been there where we see a friend or family member, whether it's their relationship or like a business opportunity where we're like, gosh, you have this job, you're a great you know, plumber. I have a friend who grew up with since his second grade, and like, you're really good at that. And he's like, should I start my own thing? And to me, I'm like, duh. Like, half the clients like already love you, and your current employer can't even keep up with the stuff anyway. He probably would be like, please do, and I'll pay you a percentage of, you know, give me a percentage of these clients I can't even handle. I mean, the risk seems so low compared to all these things. I can see him.
But he can't.
But he can't, because he's still in that mind of like, but what if I don't get a paycheck in 4 weeks, right? Where once his relationship with money becomes a little different, it's like, you'll be fine. You can, maybe you need to borrow a little bit of money or something, like home equity line, just some low interest good debt. If we're talking about worst case, this is what we're talking about. Like, worst case is you go back and get a job, which is where you were in the first place. So as soon as your brain can kind of quiet the noise, the extra fear around money and playing scared, I think whenever you're playing scared, that's when you're going to miss these opportunities. So on the outside, I can see it's so obvious. But just like we all see, it's easy when you're on the outside to see these things. And I think the sooner you can get out of like being in the weeds with money and having an unhealthy relationship and just have a healthy, like, this is what it is, it's a tool, doesn't control me, doesn't validate me, it allows you to see those opportunities a lot easier. And you can kind of get above it, like we talk about being somebody that sees it from the outside. You can kind of get above it and see those things.
What would you say, what type of advice would you give a business owner right now that is doing well and has no idea, should I be thinking about selling the business? Should I think about handing the business down? Is there a peak on when you should be thinking about it? What type of advice would you give to someone, whether to do or not do, in that type of a stage?
Well, like everything, there's so many variables, and at the end of the day, just follow your gut, what works for you and your situation. As long as you feel like you're in a grounded, good spot, clear-headed, that you already know a lot of times the answer. But for me, and my experience, having been on one extreme where you got this huge valuation, I'm staying in this thing forever. Like, my kids are going to work here, you know. And then definitely in a different mindset now, especially because the way I look at it now is like, everything I want to do now is I have boundaries around it. It's got to stay in the fun zone. Like, I have not been afraid to work hard. That's not been my problem. The problem is getting sucked too far into that and sacrificing too many other parts of my life. And what I've learned is it's being willing to work hard is an element that is necessary during part of the process, but you can get addicted to that. You can get your validation from, look how hard I work. Look at the appointments on my calendar. I stay up till 2 a.m. and
I've done that before.
We've all done it. And then we think and then we get our validation, and then even if the business does take off, you're still playing that game because you're addicted to it.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer now of like keeping things in the fun zone. All my businesses, there's times where you're doing things you don't really enjoy or love, but overall, is this going to be fun? And is this going to, be something fulfilling that way versus something that drags me down? So with that being said, to your original question about when's the right time to sell or whatever, I think like for me, I would recommend as soon as you can take some chips off the table and get a chunk of money.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's $100,000 to you, $1 million to you, or $10 million, but enough money that like once you can get a chunk of money, like the amount of like really great investments you can get into, diversifying a little bit away from what you do with the business, and the peace of mind. And again, it just seems to like really help you see the world clearer.
Yep.
When you've got that stability, you can take a little more risk if you want to in your business. If you've got $1 million already set aside and it's, the interest is paying your bills because you kept your lifestyle the same, how much differently would you behave in your business? Well, maybe now, then you can go for the moon if you want to, because you got home base taken care of. You'll just make better long-term decisions. So I'm a big believer in, if you're constantly making decisions around what will keep setting me up to make better longer-term decisions,
you win.
Do that thing, right? Do that. And so if you can take it, as soon as you feel like you can get a decent chunk of money in your bank account, like I think that tie goes to that the first time. And then after that, take some risks if you want to go.
Then you can get aggressive.
But it's amazing what you can do once you just get a chunk of money to like invest wisely, live off of, and you'll just see the world a little more clearly.
How do you feel? I've always wanted to ask you this. Between investor and business operator, do you miss one or the other? Do you like one more than the other? Do you enjoy the day-to-day building, or do you enjoy more of the investing and seeing things grow? Which, if you had a gun to the head, which one are you choosing?
I think running a business and building a business for sure. Like the investing's great. Depends on how much you're having to get involved. There's some that I'm like a board member of a couple companies, and that's fun in its own way. Do some consulting, that's fun in its own way. But still today, like what I'm doing for my biggest opportunity, thing that I think will be the biggest thing I've done, is we started it from the ground up. I'm running it myself, the CEO, I'm a founder. And, I think we are naturally, especially wired as men, to like create and build. And I think that's, if you're a creator, if we're all creators, like what a great place to put some of that energy into that world and go challenge yourself to do it and just do it better or different or whatever. So if you're just investing on the sideline, you might make money. And if your question is what will make you the most money, I mean, that's an argument in its own self, but like what brings the most satisfaction and healthy, like long-term, satisfaction, I think being a builder of a business.
Being a builder. So that's in your DNA. Is you prefer to be more in the, we used to play basketball together, and we're athletes, right? So we have that competitive drive in nature, and I think that's in many ways associated to building a business and wanting to do well. It's just, we're just wired that way, it's just fun. It's like a game. Have you found yourself gamifying anything at all when it comes to, you sold your business and then you're investing, and do you have ways to keep yourself engaged when you're doing stuff like that, like a competitive nature, you know what I mean? Like, I guess what I'm saying is, do investors or people that are investing in other businesses, do they have like in a business you can go, I'm in the marketing business, I do X amount of dollars per year, that company does X amount of dollars per year, their product, I don't know if it's better than mine, so you're kind of, well, I'm going to try to develop a much better product going to market. Do investors have that same thing, or is it just purely, here's $1, let's turn it into 10?
Well, I can speak for me. The business I do now, we meet a lot of investors, right? Like that's exactly what we do. So I get to also hear their philosophies, and they're all in different stages too. Some have been around investing forever. They had some huge exit. I had a lunch today with a guy that, major exit, and just it's interesting how the world's changed for him and his business partner and how he describes it. And so I think everybody has their own their own mindset or philosophy around it. For me, I can speak for me. I think it's fun to kind of build like how many redundancies I can have.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we'll just start with like when I sold a company and had a chunk of money. It's like, okay, it was interesting how much I cracked down on like, I'm going to go back through my budget, look through my credit card statements. Like I hadn't been in that mindset of looking through a credit card statement. Sometimes I think we can get too caught up in like saving the pennies and all that and like almost, you know, scarcity mindset. But I'm like, I'm going to go through that. Like some people are like, oh, you just went and bought a Lamborghini or something. No, that took a while before I was ready, like a couple of years.
You probably was sweating bullet. Well, I was going to say, you probably have a feeling of, you sell, because it's weird, right? You have money coming in all the time when you got a business cash flow.
Yeah.
Then you get a lump sum of money. Then you're like, but there is no more money coming in. So
exactly. There was that moment of like, I got, you know, it's funny because of my other partner that sold, I watched his brain almost get weird for like a day, like right after, where he's like, well, yeah, but I don't have any other income, and I'm like, but you're good for like 20 years. Like, who cares? Like. So it's funny how our brains will kind of play tricks on ourselves, and that's what I mean by a healthy relationship with money. It's like you wanted this big chunk of money, and now you're telling yourself you got to go get a job. I'm like, dude,
now you feel broke. You get a large. I'm broke. I don't have any money. You can talk yourself into anything. So I think for me it was like, okay, I got a chunk of money. I want to be responsible with this. This took a lot to get here. I've had a lot of failures to get here. You know, the business we sold wasn't even the one I put my heart and soul into for 10 years, ironically, right? So you just never know. You can't control everything. But when I did have a chunk of money, I felt really responsible to be wise about it. And so I got really focused on investing and learning it all and trying to understand that world. And that's what got me into my next business, ironically. But, you know, that was like, I got laser focused on that. So I didn't really ironically, I'm more of a risk taker, you know? And it was funny because when I finally had the chunk of money, my risk, your risk level
I went down. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be... Like I got really, really focused on like being wise with this money because I do think it's really difficult to get a chunk of money, get ahead in life.
Yeah.
You know, when we get raises at our jobs or even if we get a little thing like we're working so hard, we're just trying to stay alive that we're like, well, I'll just go upgrade my truck or I'll buy my wife this thing or we'll go on a vacation. And so I felt like, man, I finally got something. I want to be really responsible and see if I can really change my lifestyle to where it takes this pressure of having to just grind all the time and just, again, like I want to stay in the fun zone and go build off of being fun. So for me, ever since getting that chunk of money, to answer your question, it's like I want to see how many redundancies I can build. Here's my lifestyle. This is what it cost me, and let's go invest in this, this, and this. And each of them independently, if they do what they're supposed to, that could pay for my whole year of lifestyle. That one. So even if I have, you know, like right now, I probably have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 different ones going on. Yeah. Basically 4. And it's like any one of those 4 should be able to take care of me for that whole year. So even if something doesn't go well over here, I don't have to panic. And maybe, you know, exit too quickly. Let's say real estate, you know, I'm building a spec home and real estate changes. It's like, cool, just close on the house, buy it myself, and hold it. Maybe for like everybody that like during, you know, 2008, everything went down in half or more. But every single one of those properties is like worth double now. Like if you could have held it long enough, you would have done great. That's why a lot of people got wealthy during that time. You know, like because they were able to cash flow it during the hard times, where they were able to go pick up properties at cheap, and they all went crazy if you could hold it long enough. So it helps me make better long-term decisions. That's my big focus, is like what's just going to keep putting me in positions to make long-term decisions. Because if I have 2 investments and one doesn't go well, it's like everything's on this, and then you're making you're putting too much pressure on one thing.
That makes sense. So you're building redundancies just to, which is smart, right? Because you're basically understanding how you think and your personality, and when you feel like, well, if I only have all eggs in one basket, you really get stressed. Like some people are fine with that. Some people can just be like, yeah, I'm going all in. If it blows up, oh well.
You said it well. Like the summary I have is like, you do everything you can to get in a healthy mindset. I do a lot of work around, you know, mental health and all that, tons. And then at some point you got to say, and I got to protect myself from myself. And I know for myself, like we've all been there. We're like, I think one of the greatest feelings in the world is you're on vacation and then you get news that something went great in the business. It's like, oh,
there's nothing better.
There's nothing better. Like on the vacation and that happens. It's like, yes. And should
Honey,
you,
go ahead and order the next.
yeah, you're like, let's just stay. And we've all been there when the opposite happens. You're on vacation and something terrible goes, and it's like, can I just be free? So I wanted to try to create that mode where it's okay if something doesn't go well.
Yeah.
I can just be where I am and not let it take me out. And by having, this thing didn't go well, okay, well I got 3 others.
Yep.
That's going to take care of my bills. It's going to take care of my lifestyle.
Yep.
And not, and so if I choose, I'm going to let myself unravel about it. That's on me.
Yeah.
Because I can't get in my head and be like, well, but what about like in 6 months if we don't have enough money? What if we got to do this or change this thing?
Yep.
No, that's your own crap. You got to figure out.
Yeah.
Because you've built out enough that you shouldn't get sucked into that stuff anymore.
What about, another thing I wanted to ask you from the personal side. When you made this chunk of money, did you notice any differences between how friends or family treated you? Was there any changes amongst your relationships with them, or was just everything the same?
Yeah, I mean...
And you don't have to get ultra personal.
No, for me specifically, it's interesting because when I had the exit, most people didn't know. Because again, it was kind of almost a side company.
Got it.
It wasn't the main one that I was known for, but... so it was really interesting. The one that really took off and everybody knew it was doing well. It was very interesting how things would change. I think I thought I had all these authentic relationships, and then when that was gone, it was like they were all gone too. Yeah. And so that was eye opening, right? And I think I learned to value authentic relationships in a totally different way because, I went through that experience. I think for the most part, like we all want to take care of ourselves and be successful ourselves, and I just think it's human nature that people are going to you get attracted to someone that's successful or whatever because you think you can get something from them.
For sure.
I just think a lot of people are that way, and I think we've all been that way to some degree. Like
Absolutely.
When we're younger, we're hungry, like that guy's driving a Lamborghini, I'm going to go follow him and find out, see if I can be his friend. I think we all go through that process, but for me, I've really, now that I've been on both sides of that, I really value, the authentic relationships. And I think that's why you see a lot of value in finding other entrepreneurs and people that are going through what you've been through and even had some success, and you see them kind of come together. I think when you're on the outside, you look at it they're just sitting there talking about how rich they are. There's a pain and a price they paid. And they know they're talking to somebody that doesn't necessarily need to get something from them. And I think that's why you see that. That's
the value of those types of relationships, because a friend of ours, he mentioned, he says, that guy has made it to a point where he's had to go through some stuff to get there. Mm-hmm. And most entrepreneurs, I think, understand that's almost like the underlying message is we started the conversation with people knowing, right? People knowing you see a certain individual, you just kind of know hey, that guy is also in the same game I'm in. That's the underlying message is every business owner, entrepreneur knows it's a challenging game. May the best man or woman win, right? But at the end of the day, we're all playing the same game, and we can all relate with each other. And 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs and business owners truly do want to connect and help each other. Yeah. Right? You get those 1 out of 10s that are just big jerks, and usually those are probably the Michael Jordans of the world, right? They're so competitive that they're I'm not going to get close to anyone because I need to win at all costs. But it's a challenging game, and I think I always value our friendship and how we talk. We've had how many lunches and times at the gym where we've discussed a lot of things that really have nothing to do with business, right? Just personal development, relationships, our relationships with money, with our wives, our kids, how we can be better as a human being. It's almost like we talk more about that than business itself, because at the end of the day, that's what actually is important.
Yeah, the comment I have on that, I used to be the opposite, where if I got in that, when I was building the company and I was new to the whole game, every talk was about business, and what can I learn from that? And I needed that. I needed a lot of education on how the world worked. I mean, I didn't go to school or any of that stuff, so that was valuable to me. But now, I had a lunch today with, someone that's investing with us, and and that part of the conversation was literally 20
Oh,
seconds.
I believe it.
And he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna set my account today.
Yeah, that's great.
Is that the same link I go to? I'm like, yeah, it is. And then you just wire this money here. Cool. The entire hour and a half, we spent an hour and a half together,
Yeah.
right? And the entire thing was just about everything else. And I think a big part of it is if you can get right in all those other areas and you just be healthy here, like at the end of the day, like your brain, your heart, your body knows so many of those decisions so
Yep.
much better. Like you could sit here with me for 10 hours and explain whatever you're dealing with in your
Yep.
company. And honestly, if all I did was just go, dude, what do you think? What do you
Yeah.
think? What do you think? The chances of me giving, like, you know the details better, you're going to
Yep.
make great decisions. But if I can help you get your mind right,
Yeah.
maybe just voicing it out
Yep.
loud, like at the end of the day, it's like you don't want to be addicted to going to your therapist forever,
Yeah.
right? Like they can't be living your life for you. I think the best therapists are the ones that teach you the guiding principles and then graduate you.
Yep.
And I think it's the same in business. I needed to get all those basic principles, but once I had them, like now it's just about being healthy with my relationships, having home court advantage,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
at the house with your spouse, with your kids, everything there. If all that stuff's in a good place and you're in a healthy mindset, you'll crush it in the business
Yep.
world. I mean, you got to have the basics down, but like your heart and mind will know if you're in a healthy, good place. Like you'll make great decisions.
So with that said, Jess, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's always fun to talk business with you, and more importantly, talk just life, relationships, and I'm looking forward to see what you got going on in the future. I think it's going to be good, and until next time, appreciate you guys checking us out.
Awesome.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. That was great.
Yeah, it's
You
just
probably went way over in time. Oh.
no, we're all right.